I think it works for both sides. 4 years, the term isn't too crazy. The money's not too crazy. It kind of sets the bar, but not. I think a lot of us feel or felt that if Matthews was really wanted to push the envelope, the number could have been a lot higher. So not a lot, but maybe higher than we expected. But 13.25 on a 4-year deal gives enough breathing room, I think, for everybody moving forward going, okay, this guy wants to make it happen. Keep in mind, this is an extension, right? So there's 5 years, really, of Auston Matthews, right? So I think this is a good signing for both sides, and I think Brad Treliving has to wake up tomorrow pretty happy they got his star locked up.
He does, and you know what, Noodle, since Auston Matthews has entered the league, no one has scored more goals than him. I think sometimes maybe we forget that because of the down year last year, and when I say down year, that's a 40-goal year. That's a lot of players' career seasons, and this was a down year for him. But I agree with you. I think at some point we'll look at this as far as the AAV goes and say, he wanted to be here, and he showed that by leaving a little money on the table so this team can go out and spend and provide a good team around him. Do you see it that way as well?
Yeah, and keep in mind that John Tavares comes off the books potentially, or, he does, he'd be unrestricted in the next couple of years. So that frees up $11 million if he doesn't re-sign or extend or whatever. And the cap is going up. I think what you needed to do is get through the flat cap situation, and you're starting to come out of it this year. Obviously, it's going to go up next year and kind of push through that. Now it's the makeup of the team, and you have to have success. Nobody's going to challenge these contracts if you have success. The reason why these contracts are talked about and ad nauseum, and I would say they're challenged, is because of the lack of success in the playoffs for this group. Auston Matthews held up his end of the bargain in the regular season, really, since he stepped into the league. And he's had some good playoff performances, but not the ones where you're talking about, and we talk about it all the time. Leon Draisaitl is known as kind of a playoff performer right now. The kind of premier guy. You want to see Auston Matthews be able to do that in the playoffs and take his team deep. So, 13.25, I know people maybe wanted a little bit longer term, but in the hockey world, again, 5 years because you're adding next year as he's playing on his, original contract. This is 5 years of Auston Matthews. A pretty good situation.
It's not a 3-year deal. To me, this seems like a good compromise. If the Leafs and Leafs Nation would have loved 8, to get 4, as you say, in actuality, it's 5. It seems pretty good. But why now, Jamie? It's August 23rd.
Well, I'll put it this way. I'd much rather have it right now than September 23rd or October. Can you imagine how noisy this market would be if day one of training camp and Matthews doesn't have a deal? And believe me, he has a deal for next season. That's the crazy part out of all of this is a lot of these players, it's almost like mandatory. You got to have him locked in by July 1st or he's walking, because we saw what happened with Matthew Tkachuk, Johnny Gaudreau. Those might be outlier situations where a lot of guys are able to get these extensions. Sebastian Aho gets an extension. Other guys who are unrestricted sign with their respective teams. Timo Meier, guys like that. Everyone is a little bit different. Matthews, whether he wanted a shorter term and they just kind of landed on 4. Either way, I think 4 is it's a livable number. You're right. Leaf Nation wants 8 because McDavid put in 8. McKinnon put in 8. McCarr put in 8. I get it. And I'm not going to argue against it and defend it because I'm not in the mind of Auston Matthews. But I'll take 4 in essence, add in the 1. I'll take 5 of Auston Matthews if I'm a Leaf fan and Leaf Nation because he's made that long of a commitment to be here and try and win.
Well, and the other thing, Jamie, you understand this from when you played, I'm sure. You always just wanted that reassurance that things were done around you and all you needed to do was play hockey. So a lot of the players are kind of conditioned to say, just give me the 8-year deal. I want to be locked in. I want to know what I'm making. I don't want to have to think about anything like that. This guy's different. This guy, he's just built different. He's going to perform year to year. He has an opportunity here to do something for himself that not a lot of players have been willing or wanting to do, is to take, a 4-year deal, bring himself to 31 years old, and then sign his long-term deal from there. And as long as there's team success along the way, it really can be, one of those win-win situations. But he's essentially provided Brad Treliving, the new general manager, with 4 years to make something work around him, but he also has to hold up his end of the bargain.
Agreed. And I think there's a lot of, to unpack with this because, instead of enjoying this, there is going to be that, okay, why didn't you? Why didn't this happen? Could you have done this? Coulda, shoulda, woulda. But ultimately, what they know is they're locked in. That is the top of their pyramid. Now, other teams have a different number at the top of their pyramid, and that's where the argument begins, right? But Auston Matthews is, when he's at the top of his game, he's for sure a top 5 player in the world, depending on who you like, who you don't like. So we're not talking about second-tier superstars. This is elite franchise, number 1 centerman superstars. So you can compare against other guys and go, well, Jack Hughes is on this. Jack Hughes is, I think he's heading into that stratosphere of Auston Matthews and top-tier players, but he's not there yet. Matthews has proven it. He's won a Hart. He's been the Rocket winner twice. He basically has earned this contract. So you can't be, if you're your teammate, you're not comparing yourself to Auston Matthews. You're comparing yourself to other guys around this. And he set the bar for the Leafs. So I'm fine with this deal. I think it looks great on both sides.
Today, William Nylander in Europe said that there was no urgency in terms of his deal. Is there more urgency now? Does he need to have it done before day 1 of training camp starts?
No, I'd like to see more urgency in his play sometimes. But other than that, I think it's, he's a very casual player, which makes him amazing because he doesn't panic at any time with the puck in critical situations or not. But he's a very casual, laid-back guy, and I think that serves him well. But if I'm William Nylander, this is what I was just talking about. Take Auston Matthews off the table. There's going to be a lot of people go, Matthews makes $13.25. How can Nylander make $5 million less? Well, he's not Auston Matthews. Auston Matthews is in a different stratosphere.
Right.
He's got it. William Nylander has to be comparing himself more to Mitch Marner and other players around the league. Now, Marner, again, is a 100-point player. William Nylander's not a 100-point player. So I don't think the urgency, but I think there is comparables on both sides where they'd like to get to. It's unfortunate because we all play the comparison game, and I guarantee you there's going to be people out there going, well, Matthews is not $5 million better than William Nylander. Take Nylander and Matthews comparison off the table. They're not. I mean, Matthews has scored 60 in this league, won a Hart, and he's known as one of the top 5 players, if that, maybe higher, on the planet. William Nylander's not that. So, that's no slight on him, because everybody else is in that conversation as well. There's only a couple handful of top-tier players, elite superstars in this league, and Matthews is one of them. So I don't think the urgency is there. It'd just be nice. I think from a standpoint where you don't have to just go, all right, there's always going to be a question mark. What are they doing here? What are you doing there? Instead of having everything buttoned up, it's let's go play and have a good regular season and try and win a Stanley Cup. So would it be nice to have it done? Absolutely. And I think the fans would like it done. I'm sure management wants it done. And I'm sure to a point, William Nylander wants it done. But I don't see any urgency from either side.
Well, no. And so many times things go down to the wire because that's when the urgency kind of kicks in, right? It's like, okay, time is running out. We got to get this thing done. And for Nylander, he just has that personality where it's like, he's pretty relaxed. He's pretty calm. He's going to go out and do his thing and not really be bothered by it. The one player around the league that this might pertain a little more to than Nylander is Pettersson out in Vancouver, who he's a restricted free agent with arbitration rights, but he just had a 102-point season in Vancouver, and he said today, he's like, yeah, I'm not even thinking contract. I'm just going to go out there, have a great start to my season, and then, we'll deal with it. So different mentality, but he's like, I'm putting it to the side. And now, he's a number 1 centerman, but he's not in that Matthews category that you're talking about, Jamie, where it's like McKinnon, Matthews, Draisaitl, McDavid. He's probably in that tier below it. But now you can start making the comparisons. Okay, if Matthews is at 13.25, where is he? Is he at 11? Is he at 10.5? That can kind of ballpark it from there.
Well, I mean, Marner's a 100-point guy making 10, whatever. What is it? What, a 10-8 we'll call it, or round down, round up? I always, the numbers are so, yeah, okay, so 10-9. Okay, so almost 11. But, you've got a situation where, are you comparing against guys in Toronto that maybe set the bar differently? Or, if you traded, for example, if anybody got traded to New Jersey and the bar is what? Jack Hughes. Jack Hughes is the bar. So what does Jack Hughes make, right? So and again, timing of contracts, all of that type of stuff. So Vancouver's going to have their own, matrix, salary matrix. You can't just go, well, Mitch Marner makes this, so Pettersson's got to make this, because there'll always be somebody in the league going, well, Leon Draisaitl makes 8.5. Like, I'll take him for the next couple of years at 8.5 over anybody's contract. Peter Chiarelli gets a lot of, he gets boot in he gets between the legs.
Flack, yeah.
He gets a lot of flack, put it that way.
Yeah.
Good way of putting it.
Yeah, I'm trying to soften a little bit, but he gets booted a lot for a lot of things he did, but that McDavid and Draisaitl contract looks pretty good. So Pettersson, I think he's a double-digit player for sure. Like, so what is that, 10, 10.5? Look at Pasternak, what he signed for. He broke through that matrix in Boston, but he's a top-tier player. Like, Pasternak is... We have this argument all the time, or debate, who are the top 10 players in the league? Because I think the league's full of 20 top 10 players. No really.
Kidding. You could configure them like however you want. And Joe from the Bridge put something together for us here, Noodles.
Oh, and yeah? What's you got?
It's the percentage of the cap when all these deals were signed. So it's not highest to lowest, but here's a couple key ones. So when McDavid signed in 2017, that was 16.6% of the cap. McKinnon signed for 15.2% of the cap. Right. And Pasternak signed for 13.6% of the cap. This Auston Matthews one comes in just under 16, so 15.8, which makes sense, right? Like, he's not McDavid. That's the undisputed best player in the league, but he's right there, and he's just under it. So it does make sense.
Well, and keep in mind, as the cap goes up, if you're using those percentages or something like that, McDavid's next deal is going to be large, like a lot larger. Like, there is a leapfrog process here, which I think people understand, and percentage of the cap, and you're trying to. This is where the numbers guys do a great job of it. You're trying to project, okay, what's that cap going to look like in year 3 of this deal, and what's year 4? Like Matthews, in essence, he's got 4 years here, and then you're going to start negotiating again. What's the cap going to look like, and the percentage? What's the number going to be? Is it 16, 17, or whatever? And Austin's a big guy, and we can't forget, like, he's had a couple injuries. So if I'm Austin, I want a little bit of stability as well, because he hasn't, knock on wood for him. I knock on wood for all players, but you have to actually look at the reality is, he's had some real healthy seasons where he's dominated. He's had a few seasons where he's had, some structural issues with whether it's the back or the wrist or whatever they were talking about, shoulder, whatever he's had. And those are the ones that challenge him physically. So, if you're a player, you want that stability as well. You just superstars that kind of write their own ticket. And I think this is a nice ticket. It's a good ticket for everybody. And Leaf fans should be happy. I think Nylander's situation, it might be distracting, but they've got their team put together there. I think Brad Treliving, given this circumstance, has had a really good offseason based on some of the players that he's gone after and coveted and wanted to shape his team a little bit differently. But you got the big dog done before we're even talking about dropping the puck, because it's August.
I agree with you on all that, and I actually hadn't considered the consideration that Matthews would have for the stability, and maybe if there is any injury concern. Recklessly speculating, I think that he would have asked for 14 and 3. That's what we all thought it was going to be between like a 3 and 5 year. We weren't getting the 8. I think that's what he.
Let's put it this way: he could have asked for more money. And what were the Leafs going to do? Say no? Like, no. Yeah. Like, he could have asked for more money, and they would have had to come to the plate with it. But
okay, so let's play the woulda coulda game then. He could have said, guys, I'm looking somewhere else. I'm an American kid. L.A. Kopitar's coming off the books. I'm friends with Justin Bieber. There could have been a lot of like woulda, coulda, shoulda. This is a great scenario. Other than getting 8 years at that number, this is a great scenario for the Toronto Maple Leafs and Auston Matthews and his camp and Brad Treliving and his management group, because you got it locked up. And it didn't sound like, again, you don't hear any information trickling out, but this didn't sound like this was contentious and, like an ugly negotiation because it didn't drag out. They got it sorted out. And we're talking about a real nice number and some term on it. I think this is a really good situation for both sides, and people can kind of take that collective breath.